Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In my series Freemasonry and Satanism, this is a new book review, number 282. Moving on up, closing in on 300 books, authors reviewed. Today's book, The Fearful Master, a second look at the United Nations. G Edward Griffin. This is a hard-hitting, carefully documented book and a healthy antidote to the United Nations can do no wrong propaganda, the New York Daily News. So look at that picture of the map of the world. It's kind of interesting. It's like a flat Earth map. And then the reefs around the sides. And the divisions, almost like a sniper's rifle focus aiming device. The Fearful Masters, a second look at the United Nations. G Edward Griffin. Years ago, I made a book review or one from this book by G Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. So to me, understanding history is everything. A second look at the Federal Reserve. So the short history of it is, around the time of the Civil War in the United States with Abraham Lincoln, the elite from Britain and other elite banksters in Germany and other parts of the world lost control of controlling the USA money supply. So that would be around 1860, 1863. So for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, these elite people from the banksters from Britain, the financial district, and other places in the world, teaming up with even entities out of the Vatican and out of Germany, were trying to regain control of America's money supply. And a couple presidents were there was attempted assassination on their lives by poisoning, etc. And then 6 months prior to World War I, when before that, I forget the president's name before Woodrow Wilson, but that president and senators and congressmen for the previous 50, 60 years would not allow these elite banksters from Britain, etc., the world, take control of the USA money supply. So the Illuminati and some elite Jewish people, Zionists, told that president, the one before Woodrow Wilson, well, we'll put our man in charge and we will get what we want. And they succeeded in getting Woodrow Wilson elected. And a few months later, the Federal Reserve was created at Jekyll Island, involving Senator Hyde. Isn't that interesting? Jekyll and Hyde. You ever seen the Looney Tunes cartoon, Jekyll and Hyde? So there's a lot to this stuff, and they kind of mock we the people. They took over the USA money supply that enabled them to accomplish World War I. After World War I, there was a Great Depression in the United States and preparations for World War II, and Great Depressions all over the world, making World War II more likely, just like the situations that are going on right now on April 6th, the year 2020, with the whole world on shutdown. So economically things are collapsing. So how do you think that's going to work with China and Russia and Africa and all those countries in Europe and the Middle East, Australia, United States, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Canada. The tensions will rise, obviously. And prior to World War I and World War II, there was economic suffering, and the stress and the retaliation and the efforts to take control of the world against the perceived enemy brought us World War I, World War II, and planning brought us 9/11 and other wars, so that they could destroy all those countries in the Middle East. So could this economic stressful situation all over the world bring us World War III? And the elite who control the USA money supply have literally taken trillions upon untold trillions from the United States. Can you imagine how we would all live if they had not taken trillions and trillions and brought us into World War I and World War II? And so the United States, the political puppets were put in power that these elites could control. The financial banksters, the Zionists, involving a lot of elite Jewish people, and a lot of Jewish people, good Jewish people, who were not agreeing with this activity. They tried to warn us, like Benjamin Friedman. If you doubt anything I'm saying, go watch some of my videos on all those hundreds of books I reviewed, or go look up Benjamin Friedman's famous video on YouTube. Go look up President John Kennedy's famous video on YouTube. Just use those words. Benjamin Friedman's speech at the Waldorf Hotel in New York, his famous speech, and John Kennedy's famous speech, where he said, "Secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose them." And 7 or 8 days later, they blew the back of his head off, etc., etc., etc. So they took over the USA money supply, and G Edward Griffin wrote this big, thick book. I made a book review on it, probably in 2014. And I'm continuing to do my research, even in the midst of this situation that we're all in. And I have received numerous emails saying, "Rick, how does it feel that you were right?" And it's not a fact about me being right. I always hoped that I would look like the fool and be wrong. I never wanted to be right. But I could see the handwriting on the wall, and I could look up at the sky and see them dumping chemicals, biologicals, radioactivity, materials. We don't know. They don't tell us. We don't have a need to know, apparently. So I continue to do research. I continue to watch videos. I continue to find books. And this book here is an excellent book, and I couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. So I went on archive.com or .org, archive.org, I think, and put in G Edward Griffin, and I found the PDF of the book. And what I do is I download it, and I read the book, and it's just a few dollars for me to print it out on my Epson printer, the Envy Epson printer, that uses these cartridgeless system where you just buy these tanks of ink, and you can print out about 4,000 pages. So if you got a 200-page book, how many pages is this book? Probably 200. So what I want to read in this book, a second look at the United Nations, I just want to point out that the people in charge of the world are operating also out of the United Nations. There's plenty of evidence that it is an atheist organization, a communist organization, even a satanic organization. UNESCO, the United Nations Science and Education Department, a couple years ago, sponsored a program to put the Archway of Baal, B-A-A-L, Archway of Baal, in New York and London. And later on I found out that UNESCO, the United Nations Education and Science Department were putting out 1,000 of these archways all over the world to Baal, B-A-A-L, and Baal, B-A-A-L, is a demon. If you go on Yahoo image site and look up B-A-A-L, Baal, B-A-A-L, you will see the demon. And the archway is a doorway, which is a portal. And it has all kinds of inscriptions on it, like magic symbols. So apparently you have these archways with magic symbols, and you can communicate with the demon through the portal. This is not so far-fetched if you understand reality. And like I said, you can go back and watch any of the hundreds and hundreds of videos I made and many other people have made, and find out that it's becoming clearer and clearer that this is a Luciferic, satanic cult that rules the world, and the Zionists, who are predominantly of the Kabbalah type cult. And Kabbalah, you can find books on Kabbalah magic and Kabbalah witchcraft. So the people who control our world are into demonic fallen angel worship, whether it's Moloch or Baal and many other names. And even on the dollar bill, where my finger is here, sorry, the opposite side, on top of that one, you can look at your own dollar bill. Focus. Sorry about that. But you can see a little owl perched on that one. There you go. See the little owl? Right above my finger. Okay, come on, focus. Right above my finger, there's a little tiny owl. Moloch. We go to the Bohemian Grove, where a lot of our elite leaders have been photographed, including presidents and Nixon and others. You will see a giant owl, and they have a big fire in the owl, and they throw a baby in the fire called the cremation of care. The men only wear long robes naked, and apparently, according to the stories that I've read, they ship in gay men for some kind of homosexual satanic ritual. You can't make this up. They throw a baby in the fire. Cremation of care. You can't make this up. The United Nations, UNESCO, is putting the Archway of Baal in London, New York, and 1,000 other cities, and paying for it. Baal, a demon, a devil, and apparently they got pictures of Baal on Yahoo image site holding out his hands, or even stuffing a child in his mouth, eating it. So, and I can go on and on and on about the symbols. It's on the dollar bill. The all-seeing eye, New World Order, mission complete. And even on G Edward Griffin's other book is the symbol with the eagle and the 13 stars and the 13 stripes and the 13 feathers and the 13 arrows and the 13 leaves. So 13, of course, is a witchcraft number. 13 witches to a coven, etc., etc. So G Edward Griffin is a well-known author, smarter man than me, and he investigated the United Nations and tells all the things that I talk about. And he investigates the United Nations and tells all the secrets about that. So let me read from the book here. This is how I do these videos. I like to read a short portion of the book and break it up with a little bit of my thoughts, realizing that who is controlling the world are the people behind the total world shutdown. A total world shutdown for influenza, a flu, where more people have died in previous years in any one year than are dying in this episode of the influenza. And the COVID virus, coronavirus, is a common virus that's existed for years and years. There are a couple others, but this one was called COVID-19 because apparently this particular virus erupted in China in 2019. So they've had it before. They've had even more detrimental biological viruses out there killing people. SARS, Ebola, and Spanish flu, and many others. There's a lot of anomalies with the storyline from the powers that be, the media. And again, we see the results of shutting down the whole world and businesses in Australia over here, and Mexico, and United States, and Canada, and Europe, and China, and Russia, and the whole world. So most of people are aware that a lot of people economically are living week to week, month to month. We don't have a lot of reserves. So this situation of shutting down the world is obviously going to be a path of no return. And it is, in my opinion, orchestrated, planned, and controlled by people also in the United Nations that have an agenda. It's a communist agenda, it's an anti-Christian agenda, an atheist agenda, a satanic agenda. And they call themselves atheists, but they do satanic, demonic rituals. So it does exist, it is real, the symbols are everywhere, the things that they do are obvious. So let me read from the book, and maybe you'll believe me, and maybe you'll go on archive.org, I believe it is, and for free, download the PDF of E. Edward Griffin's book. Just look up archive.org, get to that website, plug in the search for G. Edward Griffin, The Fearful Master. You probably have to put his G. Edward Griffin in there. Find the PDF, download the PDF, and read the whole book yourself. But here we go. Let's take this back to 1955. 1955, Congressman Lawrence H. Smith, Wisconsin, describes the United Nations and UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, as a permanent international snake pit where godless communism is given a daily forum for the hate, recrimination, psychological warfare against freedom, and the unrelenting moral aggression against peace. If instead of rereading that, it's so important, just back up your computer and listen to what I said again. Crazy. That same year, at its annual national convention in Miami, the American Legion formally passed the following resolution. You know who the American Legion is, right? These would be people who were in foreign wars and come back to the United States and have their little lodge, the American Legion. And so it's made up of some sincere people who fought in wars all over the world. And at their annual national convention in Miami, the American Legion formally passed the following resolution. So the American Legion resolved that the American Legion urges Congress to repeal the law creating the United States Commission for UNESCO, United Nations Education and Science Department, and its Secretariat, and that Congress deliver mandates to all administrative departments of the United States government to desist from further dissemination of UNESCO and U.S. Commission for UNESCO materials, reports, programs within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So apparently the American Legion is telling Congress, issuing a resolution, sending them a letter signed by all these war heroes to cease and desist disseminating the information materials coming out of the United Nations, UNESCO. Wow, that's pretty powerful. Back in 1955. As the true nature of UNESCO became better understood by more and more Americans, popular opposition began to rise against it. Patriotic organizations and service clubs all over the nation began to speak up and demand corrective action. To stem the tide, the State Department, so the people who are elected, our officials, when the Foreign Legion sent a letter to Congress to get rid of the United Nations connection and the materials they're publishing, communist, atheist, satanic materials, and you'll see that here when I read on. So to stem the tide, the State Department, so the people working in Capitol Hill, people working for the Senate, people working for the House of Representatives, issued a series of lengthy bulletins which asserted that a few people had been making some misstatements about UNESCO, and some of them attaining the proportions of deliberate misrepresentation. Many of these statements repeat irresponsible charges which were long ago shown to be groundless. You know, it's funny when you look back from the year 2020 today, you find out that the charges were not groundless. And a few days ago, the American Legion passed its resolution condemning UNESCO. President Truman told newspaper reporters the Legion doesn't know what it's talking about. So apparently the Legion wasn't associated with the satanic secret societies, the Zionist banking system, the bought and paid for politicians. So the President Truman says the Legion doesn't know what it's talking about. They have gone haywire in the last few years. They don't know what they are doing. So what do you think? The purpose of this charter is to examine some of the, the purpose of this chapter is to examine some of the groundless, irresponsible charges and misrepresentations that have led the American Legion, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and many other patriotic societies to go haywire against UNESCO. So let's find out what these crazy ideas, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the patriotic societies, the American Legion, what causes all these sincere, concerned citizens to go haywire against UNESCO? Frederick Engels wrote under the communism, Friedrich Engels wrote that under communism, so Friedrich Engels wrote that under communism, I repeat it for a reason, the youth of the world will grow up in a new free social conditions and will be in a position to cast away all this rubbish of statism. So I guess that would be cause people to go haywire, to be conspiracy theories, foolish people, just because Friedrich Engels says that under communism we'll be able to cast away all the rubbish of statism. So we won't be able to be proud of being from Maine or Florida or California, or proud to be an American citizen, or proud to be a Brazilian citizen, or proud to be a Mexican citizen, or proud to be a Canadian citizen, or proud to be German, or proud to be French, or proud to be British, or proud to be Spanish, or proud to be Chinese, or proud to be Indian, or proud to be Russian, Australian, New Zealand, anywhere in the world, Libya. This is intended for the whole world, for nobody to be proud of who and what they are. Statism. William Z. Foster amplified this by saying, the studies will be revolutionized. So they're going to revolutionize our schools, being cleansed of religious, patriotic, and other features of the Burgonese ideology. So the Burgonese society needs to go. So we homeowners, we business owners, we people who work at careers at auto manufacturers, people who have other careers at aerospace companies, working for huge department stores, and who have some money, maybe invest a little stocks. You know, people all over the world buying a lot or a house or whatever. Burgonese ideology must go. Religious, patriotic attitudes must go. I'm throwing my the stuff in there twice. The students will be taught on the basis of Marxism, dialectic materialism, internationalism, and the general ethics of the new socialist society. So they need to bring about the new socialist society. They need to bring the whole world down and do a reset. Have you heard those words lately? Reset, a new cash system, a new world religion, a global order. It's all part of this. The communism, atheism in disguise, which is actually Satanism, and the symbols are everywhere. I could make, and I have made, 100 videos on this satanic aspects of all this. And it's clearly identified in the Bible again and again, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in Revelation. I mean, it's overwhelming. And we are, believe it or not, to some of you out there, we are spiritual beings. We are on a trip, a visit to planet Earth when we're born into these bodies, and we die after 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, whatever. Some people live to be 100. Some people die at 2 years old or 10 years old. But we come into this reality and we leave. This is not the permanent reality. So it doesn't matter so much what happens to us, but how we react to what happens to us. The things we do and the thoughts we have are very important. We should not have hateful thoughts. No matter how much we are overwhelmed and stressed out, we have to pray for love of the world, this place that we're visiting. All right, so this guy, William Foster, next sentence says, our teachers must write new school textbooks and rewrite history. Next page. Marxism point of view. So this would be anti-God point of view. There will be no place for the present narrow patriotism, the bigoted national chauvinism that serves so well the capitalist war makers. And again, I find so much wrong with this. We the people, me and you, general citizen, are not war makers. We were all stunned after 9/11 and bought the government story that these people over here from Iraq and Afghanistan and all those other countries were the culprits. They were not. It is obvious if you look into the Engineers and Architects of America Association and all the work that they've done and so many other videos. 9/11 was an inside job, a false event, so they could do what they're doing. In my opinion, the whole shutdown of the whole world is a controlled event so that they can do what they're going to do next. And if they do what they're going to do next, there's going to be a huge depopulation of the planet. Now, there's several ways they can do it. One, in my city today, or in the country where I live, they're sky spraying something into the sky again. These long lines, and they unfold to be a big sheet of white pasty stuff in the sky. They could put something in that, and David Icke said it in his video. Max Egan said it in his video, and so many other people. Dane Wigington, Geoengineering Watch, said it in his video the other day. Deborah Travers. They could ramp it up to the next level and start spraying some biological weapon, and people would be dying everywhere, and they would probably believe that it's all from some kind of virus. Quite interesting. Shutting down the world, businesses going bankrupt, people not paying their rent. In the newspapers, on internet press releases, landlords are serving eviction notices, and they're being called out as evil, and the managers of those rental properties say, wait a minute, my boss said I have to collect the rent because we have a mortgage payment to pay, and if we don't pay it, the bank is going to take the buildings, foreclose on us, and the banks are not listening to us when we're asking for some help. And the banksters, of course, are the elite people that control our world. So it is a domino effect. It was predictable. The people who shut down the world knew this. They had to have discussed it. We know what they want from what I'm reading in this book. And so the coronavirus served as a good tool to expand the whole concept of it and do something to save us from killing ourselves. Everybody stays home, shuts down your businesses, don't pay your rent, and the government passed a stimulus program giving themselves $2 trillion, and apparently they're going to send all the people making under $70,000 a year $1,200, and I got out my calculator, and that's about 1.5 to 2 billion. So if they passed a stimulus program of 2 trillion, from subtract 2 billion, there's 1,000 billion in a trillion. So 2,000 billion minus 2 billion leaves them with 1,998 billion. And apparently, prior to this whole event, RT News, Rick Sanchez, Glenn Beck, and other people were reporting that the Federal Reserve was shuffling $500 billion to the banking system every night for 3 or 4 days, a couple trillion. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump in his campaign speeches was saying the economy was better than it has ever been in the history of America. And so I'm thinking, then why were they shuffling $500 billion a day prior to the corona outbreak and the shutting down the world? Apparently the system was going to collapse, so they're creating a controlled situation to bring about the desired result that I'm reading about in this book, The Fearful Master. Okay, back to the book. I appreciate you bearing with my thoughts on this. I'm trying to make it real clear. I'm not a fearmonger. I don't think there's any room for fear. As far as I'm concerned, when if we do get killed by this, if they started spraying toxins and poisons in the air today, or emitting some microwave energies that kills us all, those who believe in God and choose that path will wind up in heaven, which apparently is a much more beautiful place than earth could ever be. And a lot of people who have died and returned from the death or had out-of-body experiences, in the many, many, many books about those topics, say that when you return to the spiritual world, it's like when you die, you just like go to sleep for a second and wake back up in that other world, and it's just amazingly wonderful there. So to look forward to that is probably a realistic opinion. Although we are alive and consciously we're trying to stick to this life, but all of us have to leave eventually. Back to the book here, throwing in my 2 cents. There will be no place for the present narrow patriotism, the bigoted national chauvinism that serves so well the capitalist war makers. And again, like 911, we citizens are not the war makers. Most of us don't even think about capitalism. We go to work, we get paid, we pay our bills, we like to raise a family. People go to sports, football games, basketball games, birthday parties, etc. We're just trying to live a normal life. You would hardly call John or Mary or Tim or Paul or me, Rick, and everybody else a capitalist war maker. But the people who control our world are the capitalist war makers. So you have to read with a discerning eye and a discerning mind. You have to see through the lies in the prints. So this was a statement made by Earl Broder, or I should say, one of the people from the United Nations, using the word capitalist war makers. In 1936, speaking before the 9th National Convention of the Communist Party in the United States, 1936, that's just a couple years prior to World War II. They were publishing a book called Germany Must Perish prior to World War II about this time, calling for the death of every citizen with any German DNA, men, women, and children, by some Jewish elite people prior to World War II. Did you know that? And then prior to World War II, you can look this stuff up, there were press releases or advertisements taken out in major world newspapers saying that 6 million Jews in Europe were in danger prior to World War II, prior to the so-called Holocaust. The newspapers were saying 6 million Jews were in danger. You can go on Yahoo image site and type in 6 million Jews in danger, and you'll get all the pictures, and I've shown it in previous videos. So they were calling on the destruction of Germany prior to World War II, and that 6 million Jews were in danger prior to World War II. And of course, now after World War II, they said 6 million Jews were put into gas chambers and killed, and that doesn't appear to be the true story. Did any Jews die? Of course they did. A lot of people died in World War II. But apparently the biggest program, the Transfer Agreement, is another book, the Transfer Agreement. The Zionists and the banksters and the elites, Illuminati, were working to have a lot of Jews in the German area shipped to Palestine right here. So you can look up pictures called Aliyah, and that's a word calling for the return of all of the Jewish people to the Middle East, part of biblical prophecy called the return, Aliyah. So all this was going on in World War I and World War II, clearly for the last 100 years. And apparently Israel, sucking all the money out of the United States with all the Jewish political action groups, have taken trillions of our money and have purchased a lot of the companies around the world, and they are the advanced technical capital, a leading technological center of the world right now, controlling the whole world. And apparently saying things like that is probably what got me banned on YouTube. My 11 years worth of videos and published, shutting down my channel with no strikes against me. They can't give me any strikes because I'm not making anything up, and I'm certainly not promoting hate. I don't even tell people to hate the Satanists, the devils and the demons, because God told us to pray for everybody and everything and to not have fear during these events. We're just here like avatars in these biological bodies. And why? What's the purpose of it all? I don't know, but I believe God in his infinite wisdom in the spiritual realm, they know what they're doing, and I'm going to trust in that. And apparently the evil forces controls Earth. I believe that. And all I know is that we the people need to wake up and acknowledge what is going on. And I believe that is significant enough to save most people. accepting God and believing the evil is going on and speaking out against it. You can't take up guns and go shoot up the city hall or the National Guard or your neighbors for their food. You're just going to wind up on the wrong side of the elevator when you die. You're not going to go up, you're going to go down. Just saying. So in 1936, speaking before the 9th National Convention of the Communist Party in the United States, Earl Broder declared, "Who wins the youth wins the future of America." And they have been mind controlling our youth since World War II, actually about 20 years after that, the 60s, when we had the hippie age and they were importing drugs in America, even using the Vietnam War to introduce all of those crazy drugs and crazy attitudes and prevent people from raising large families because they were a little concerned about too many people on the planet about 10 to 20 years after World War II. And the truth is, for the last 100 or 200 years, countries all over the world were clearly concerned with unwanted people. That's what they consider overpopulation. Unwanted and unneeded people for these atheist, satanic elite. I mean, think about it. It costs money to have a dog or a cat, right? Well, what about these elite? They think we're animals, and it costs money to feed and house a human. So what's the best way to take care of that problem? Kill off the humans. And these elites think that the whole world will be theirs, and that there'll be a smaller number of humans that they can mentally control to be their slaves and entertainment and serve other decadent and perverted desires of theirs, as we've all seen with the Epstein situation and sex trafficking, child trafficking. It's quite horrible. It goes all the way back to Aleister Crowley, child sacrifice, child sexual abuse, child sexual satanic rituals. It's insane. It's very insane. Back to this book. In these 3 brief statements, the communists themselves have fully explained what UNESCO in America was designed to accomplish. So UNESCO from the United Nations wants to accomplish the following: achieve effective control of the education system of our country. Have they done that? The obvious answer is yes. If the communists can condition the minds of the youth of a nation for just one generation, that nation will be theirs within that generation. And a lot of people out there, you'd mention God, Jesus, I don't care if it's Islam, Buddhist, Hindu, people will laugh at you and say there's no God. They have been indoctrinated into the atheist philosophy through the school system and peer pressure and cartoons and movies and newspapers and so much more. Deride, ridicule, and ultimately destroy any feelings of patriotism or loyalty to our country among the youth. So this is one of their aims. Install in our youth an outlook of so-called internationalism and world-mindedness. This can easily be reconciled at a later date with the concept of a one-world communist empire. Remember, this is a well-known author, Edward Griffin, G Edward Griffin. Indoctrinate the youth to embrace Marxism-socialism, not under that name, of course, so they use all kinds of fake names, even the thing New Age, etc., as the correct political and social viewpoint. And again, I watch a lot of videos. I even watch a lot of astrology videos. And I listen to those astrologers talking about Saturn moving into Aquarius and Saturn is supposed to be the planet representing Satan, and Aquarius is the new age we're entering, the age of Aquarius. So Satan is entering the age of Aquarius, that would be now, and these people, these astrologers, are saying that the whole system that we've operated on for the past 100 years or 1,000 years is outdated and no longer needed. And I point this out to my friend I watch these horoscope videos with. I say, there they say it again, they say it again, they say it again. We're going to have change. And a lot of pundits are talking about this world shutdown. It will never return to the world we knew even a month ago. And they're planning on bringing all this about. And it seems like the hammer, or I should say the vice, is being tightened a little bit more every day. Wouldn't it be wonderful, some people have hope, including me, that if they just reversed all of their activities today and say that the virus is dying up and the numbers have dropped to almost nothing and everybody can go back to work. But I don't think they came this far to do that. But maybe if they freak out and realize they're being exposed, you never know. So the 12th hour is here, or like seconds left. We can't take up arms and fight these people. We can call people. We can send emails. We can alert everybody. We can send videos. You can look up Max Egan. Look up the new video by David Icke. And so many other people, Dane Wigington, Geoengineering Watch, Deborah Travers, and look up 5G and the dangers, and look up 5G and coronavirus. Look up those keywords, coronavirus and 5G. See the plethora of videos and experts telling you that 5G radiations, just like a microwave oven, agitates your blood cells, causing them to emit toxins. The toxins cause flu-like symptoms and respiratory problems and can kill you. Think about this. When you put a glass of water in a microwave, the water starts to bubble because the microwave radiations are agitating the water molecules. When they put these 60 megahertz cell phone tower transmission signals out, those transmission radiation microwave signals causes the water molecules in your body and the ones in the air around you to get agitated and altered and destroyed. So basically the oxygen around you can be destroyed, and in your body also, causing a quite distressful situation of respiratory breathing problems, even death. Think about it. Look it up. 5G microwave frequencies, and look up microwave operational frequencies and see that they're similar. Everybody's been making videos warning about this. All right, some more of the aims of the United Nations. Neutralize the youth against the religious influences of the home. So if you happen to be a God-fearing man or woman raising a couple children, telling them about God and your beliefs, I don't care if you're Baptist or Catholic or Islamic or whatever, they apparently are opposed to that from the United Nations, UNESCO. And all other concepts of rigid morality, which might interfere with the acceptance of the Marxism and communist doctrine. Wow. So morality, they're calling it rigid morality, and might interfere with the acceptance of the Marxism communist doctrine. So only thing that morality would interfere with would be anti-Christian philosophy, which is Satanism, because their commandments are the opposites, as Aleister Crowley told us. Their commandment is, do as thou wilt. The second commandment, according to Aleister Crowley, is referred to number 1 again, do as thou wilt. That means there is no moral 10 commandments. Killing, stealing, adultery. Nonsense. Do as thou wilt. Whatever you want to do. You were put on this earth to do what you want to do, not be interfered with or restricted by these crazy religious people. So they would have us believe. And a lot of young people are buying it. As former communist Joseph Kornfetter expressed it, UNESCO corresponds to the agitation and propaganda department of the Communist Party. So the UNESCO, the United Nations Education and Science Department, corresponds to the agitation and propaganda department of the Communist Party. The Communist Party claimed to be atheists and practiced satanic rituals. So they don't want to admit that they worship the devil, so they rather say they worship nothing, atheists. But in truth, if you see what's going on and you look at the Moloch and the Baal symbols and the satanic symbols and the Luciferic symbols and the TV programming, you know that they are Satanist and Luciferic people, which are derivatives of the fallen angels and other evil entities. So this department handles the strategy and method of getting at the public mind, young and old. You can't make this stuff up. The Senate Internal Security Subcommittee disclosed that Alger Hiss, H-I-S-S, and Harry Dexter White were the principal architects of the UNESCO, along with the communists from other countries. For instance, Ellen Wilkinson, who had been an open communist in England, was even elected to a city council position on the Communist Party ticket, who later called herself a socialist. So the communists, to sugarcoat the terminology, they call themselves socialist. Who made president of UNESCO's Preparatory Commission. Clement Attlee had made her British Minister of Education, and as the Senate Committee of the Judiciary stated, all right, let me continue reading here, at the very bottom here. What appears to be by far the worst danger spot from the standpoint of disloyalty and subversive activity among Americans employed by the internal organizations of UNESCO. Mr. Price Greedy, former chairman of the International Organization's Employees Loyalty Board, expressed the opinion that there existed in UNESCO a clique of people who placed the interest of the communist and the communist ideology, atheism, Satanism, above any service to UNESCO and above their own country. So they're serving the devil. They're serving Lucifer. On August 2nd, 1953, Dr. Luther Evans, who was then the new director of UNESCO, inadvertently confirmed the above Senate report when he declared, get this, that the United States drive against communism, infiltration in UN groups was a factor threatening to destroy UNESCO. So the attitudes against communism in the United States was threatening to destroy UNESCO and their goals. So the United Nations, I was thinking about that today, and I need to do it. I need to go online and see the current website for the United Nations and see how big their hand is in this coronavirus and these new changes that are going to come about on the world. Apparently, if the riots break out or revolution breaks out or resistance from peoples break out and the stores run out of food and gas stations close and more deaths ensue, obviously chaos and anarchy will run rampant across the world behind me. And then there'll be declarations that people need to surrender their weapons, and everybody will be required to take a vaccine. And apparently, according to some of these videos I'm watching, something called an RN code in our DNA will be injected into us with these vaccines. And what it will allow, what they inject into us, is turn us into programmable automatons, like robots, via the 5G digital transmission signals. So they need to get that stuff in us. For the past 10 plus years, they've been putting the heavy metals and other stuff into the sky. So we are already saturated with the heavy metals, which makes us more susceptible to the RF transmissions. But apparently a key component is some kind of programmable rNDNA that they need to get in us so that it can be triggered by the radio signals, making people sick, or maybe even just killing people, targeting people, whatever. That's what they're saying. I do know that the intense spraying of stuff into the sky since I woke up in 2005 has been very intense, and even at night with the full moon, you can see the thick white plumes of stuff coming out of the planes. It's kind of hard to photograph with your camera. Back to this book here. The following item appeared in newspapers on September 25th, 1954. The article is speaking about the Institute of Pacific Relations, which, as previously mentioned, has been officially described as Soviet-dominated. The News Dispatch said, 2 problems confront the organization. One is that the work is set out to do is now being duplicated by the wealthier and better equipped United Nations, such as the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization, UNESCO. So the Soviet expanding communist world, its work was being duplicated by the United Nations. And I believe they have been seriously at work here in the United States for the past 100 years, attacking the youth and the school system, and trying to get rid of morality, promoting the homosexual agenda and pansexual agenda, sex with anything, and people, gender identity, and all this other stuff that we have all seen. So apparently it's all clearly described here as the anti-morality, anti-Christian, anti-religious Islam, anti-religious Buddhism, Hinduism. If you read about these religions and the spiritual deities, you will see that most of them are similar. Even the shamans in Peru and American Indian shamans, the Hopis, taking these peyote and other drugs to communicate with the spiritual world to get solutions for people who are ill or other problems with the indigenous tribes all over the world. Even the indigenous people, Australia, the Aborigines. So these tribes all over the world, Africa, Europe, China, Austria, America, South America, Eskimos, they have been communicating with the spiritual world, getting direction all along. And so their big religions are the same thing, communicating with the spiritual world, whether you want to call it Archangel Michael, Gabriel, or other entities. All right, back to this stuff here. In its own literature and periodicals, UNESCO makes its position clear. The Communist Guardian of Melbourne, England, in its May 28, 1959 issue, recommended the UNESCO Courier to its readers as a monthly magazine deserving a wide distribution. So the Communist Guardian is recommending the UNESCO Courier to the communist people. The Courier is so blatant in its communist propaganda that even the most unobserving reader can scarcely miss it. G Edward Griffin. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube, interviews with many people, maybe some of his own videos, but a very smart man. You can take this information to the bank. I'm reading from this book here, and go watch my video. If I haven't published it, I will publish it right away. Series 55 in my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, The Creature from Jekyll Island, where they took over the U.S. control of the money supply in 1913, December 21st, an occultic holiday, the winter solstice. So it's all about the occult. It's all about Satanism, Luciferianism, secret societies, Gnosticism, and the Kabbalah Satanist. Just saying, that's my synopsis of the whole thing after all these years of research. You don't have to look very hard. Once you know the answer, looking up this material is a lot easier, and verifying everything I'm saying. All right, I'll read a little more and I'll end this video and remind you again where you can find this free PDF book. Go on used book sites and maybe try to find the actual book. I did do a search and they seem kind of expensive to me, so I just printed one out. As we have pointed out several times, not all the people who are advancing the cause of the United Nations and its specialized agencies are doing so with malice aforethought. As a matter of fact, there are relatively few who are. So most of the people in the UN are probably well-intended people. But wait a minute. What do these evil people really do? It has always been a pattern of successful communist operation. That would be atheist, Satanist. Got to get your words straight. When you hear communist, you're talking about Satanist and atheist. Communist operation to have unsuspecting idealists, so they want to reel in well-intended people to do most of the work, while the communists stay in the background, pulling the strings and issuing the directives. And I do know that a lot of the Kabbalah Jewish types in the past 1,000, 2,000 years have always worked behind the scenes as advisors to kings and queens and other elites, calling them magi, magicians. Don't forget that series, J.R. Tolkien, the Hobbit trilogies. And you have those evil wizards behind the scenes advising the king. That's what these people are. With the dark force of Star Wars. Consequently, many good people are victimized into lending their time, their reputations, and their money. Unfortunately, once a person has done this, he gradually acquires a vested interest in his own era, and even though he finds more and more aspects of the United Nations which run counter to his sensibilities, he tends to brush them aside rather than swallow his pride and admit he made an original mistake in judgment. Most humans are like that, but occasionally there is an exception. So a lot of people are on the inside. If you told them that it was an evil organization and they worked there, they would get quite angry and say, I'm not evil. But if they really took a hard look at some of the things they're doing and enforcing and what their bosses are doing with all this death and economic destruction all over the world, they would probably have a different change of attitude if they could learn the truth. Maybe some of them will watch a video like this. And this includes military leaders and people working for the CIA, FBI, police departments, Federal Reserve and tax collectors and all these groups. Please, if the people on the inside, if some of you don't have the guts to stand up and wake up and say no to your masters, you're going to lose your souls. It'd be better to wake up and tell those people no and be shot on the spot and go to heaven than to continue to aid and abet them in their satanic evil activities on planning to depopulate the planet and enslave the rest of the people. And it's all in these books that I've been going over. There's no mistake. There's no reason to shut down the whole planet for some influenza, which in previous years there have been outbreaks and many more people have died. Why in this case are they doing what they're doing? Because it's time for them to pull the trigger and bring about this global world order and depopulate the planet that they talk about so much, and so much material I've gone over. And get rid of the Christian and other religious attitudes of people all over the world. It is a satanic thing with the Epstein and many other of these cases, the Franklin cover-up, Aleister Crowley, and so much more exposed. You can go on the internet and look into it, and it's actually horrifying. I don't blame people for not wanting to come to grips with this and deal with it. I understand, but we have to. So here's one guy who got involved and woke up. Mr. John Larson was an active, respected, and well-known citizen in his community, had been invited by the State Department to become a member in the United Nations National Commission for UNESCO. Like most Americans, he considered this to be an honor. And felt that it was his duty to accept, which he did. He soon discovered, however, that he had been invited solely for the prestige that his name would add to the commission. He was expected to be satisfied with the role of a yes man for all the decisions of the full-time staff and senior members of the commission. He expressed a desire to participate in UNESCO planning sessions, and he was theoretically allowed to do three-quarter volunteering to travel at his own expense. But he was not advised of the meetings, so they were obviously keeping him out of the inside decisions. He tried to make his voice felt through correspondence and personal visits with the commission's secretariat. He was ignored, as were his recommendations. Finally, he resigned in protest, and here's what Mr. Lawson revealed. Now, I'm telling people, I make these videos, and you're learning what I'm learning. We have decisions to make. We have actions to take. We have phone calls to make. We can forward videos. We can do something, and it matters. Or we can just watch everything around us collapse and get worse and worse and worse and worse every day, until later on we will wish we spoke up when we had a chance. All right, so Mr. Larson resigned. Here's what he says. With respect to UNESCO's literature, it has very little substance, and what little it does have appears to be overtly and covertly to be slanted away from the spiritual and political beliefs and traditions of the United States of America towards the sterile conceptions of a nebulous one-world government or federation which is to be built upon atheist foundations. So I don't make this stuff up. We know what they want, if we want to admit it. I found grave errors of omission and distortions of perspective with respect to historical trends and events and to the growth and development of certain ideas. So they're distorting history and painting the rewriting of history in their philosophy to what they want to do, demonizing morality, etc. For these reasons, it is important to analyze what UNESCO does not present and proclaim, as well as what it does present and proclaim, in order to give an understanding of what its aims are. Peoples today are interested in achieving some sort of peaceful solution to the conflicts present in the world. And that's true. We would all like the world to be in peace. But apparently the elites who control our world will not allow it to be at peace for even a moment. We continually to have these events. Boom, boom, gun shooting, bombings, nasty stuff in the news, Democrats attacking Republicans, Republicans attacking Democrats. Just the news is just badgering us every day, every week, every month, every year, and it does take its toll on our physical and spiritual health. People get depressed. Some people commit suicide. And a lot of people in the army who have killed people have committed suicide. It's an alarming problem. They're worried about the economic collapse of the world. They're saying there could be a lot of suicides. The question is, on what foundation will the edifice of peace be built? UNESCO claims to supply this foundation. But when its claims are investigated, they are found to be empty, as well as a convenient cover for its real activities. The foundations of UNESCO are atheistic and materialistic. For it, man is the highest product of nature rather than one created. So they want to create the idea of man being God, not God, in the image of the likeness of God. This view of God and man dictates UNESCO's methods and can be seen in them. Rather than being genuinely concerned with the intellectual and moral development of man through education, UNESCO makes cynical use of those who it professes to be serving and helping. So they're cynical of the decent people, rather than assisting people to grow and accept responsibilities. UNESCO preys upon those with whom it comes in contact and is more than glad to assume covertly and overtly all responsibilities. So I could go on and on and on, but at some point I think I've delivered the message. You can go on archive.org, you can go on used book sites, you can go find, and there's probably other places, you can go find G Edward Griffin's book. PDF free online, archive.org is where I got this. Or you can look up The Fearful Master in PDF, maybe find it in another location. And it tells all, a couple of 100 pages. I've done just little justice to this book. I've been reading some other stuff about the UN's activity over there in the Congo, clearly kicking out all of the people from Denmark, Belgium, and bringing in the communists and slaughtering the citizens, with the United Nations supporting the communist effort in the Congo, Africa, and inhibiting any activities by decent peoples for a normalized American way of life where they have factories and people going to work, etc. So apparently the elite are after the resources in Africa. Tons of resources. So you can understand why they would probably have spent the last 100 years using Ebola and other means, AIDS, killing off the citizens. There's a lot of gold in them there hills and other resources and land. So just like they did in South America and Central America and are doing in the United States and all over Europe, bringing about the European Union, which was behind the scenes organized and controlled somewhat by the British, who strangely enough are the ones who backed out of the EU conveniently prior to this coronavirus situation and world shutdown. You think that was just a convenient thing they did? Or was it planned? Did they know something about the future? And apparently, there's quite a bit of information out there that all of this insanity with the world shutdown and the coronavirus was known in advance. In 2017, there's a video with all the patents by the Bill Gates family and the Department of Defense and other organization making these patents on coronaviruses and the vaccinations. So, and websites that were built that are quite complex. I've shown one of those here in a video not too long ago, that this stuff was all planned. They knew what they were doing. They know what they're doing. They know what they want. And apparently they have to bring the world down. And I hope the whole thing gets reversed and we go back to normal today or tomorrow. But it doesn't look like that's what they're going to do. But you also have to remember, I'm not promoting fear. I'm just sharing the truth. And I believe the truth shall set us free. And we are spiritual beings. A lot of this is prophesied in the Bible and other religious prophecies and other religions. And so it has to happen, apparently. The evil forces need to be giving enough rope, so-called, to hang themselves. And the rest of us, when we leave the planet, can go to heaven into a wonderful reality. And if reincarnation is a reality, we will be in better places in the future versus joining with the dark side, the atheist and the Satanist, which is certainly, if God is the God that I think it is, that world is, the God world, the spiritual world, it won't bode well for the evil people, of course. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. And again, it's a conversation I think we need to be having. And maybe some people don't agree with everything I think and I say, but at least it's a conversation. It's a starting point, and people need to wake up and realize we have an influenza situation where the whole world is being shut down, and it's going to be a total and complete economic collapse if it's allowed to continue to be shut down. And we know what they want. I've got the books. I've been making the videos. We know who's behind it all. Satanists, atheists, communists, Zionists, Kabbalists, witchcraft. Thanks for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.